Welcome to GoPowerCat.com's Friday walkthrough, sponsored by Riverbank Brewing. Now, let's head into the studio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome in here to the Friday walkthrough. I'm Cole Carmody. With me, as always, in a special attire for this week, former Kansas State defensive back Monty Spiller. K-State takes care of West Virginia 45-18. Now they move on to get ready and face the Kansas Jayhawks. We'll talk about that game at the start of the second half. We'll recap a little bit of the West Virginia game in the first half and dig into what Kansas State needs to do the rest of the season to be successful. But, Monty, you're wearing the Letterman jacket. What went into that?
Hey, man, it's BKU week, man. I don't like saying hate KU, but I dislike KU highly. So I have to break out the Letterman jacket.
Yeah, Monty and I were talking beforehand, and he said, I was thinking about wearing it, but it's a little warm inside the house.
It is. I'm gonna come out of it. But hey, it's still, I'm proud that it still fits me pretty good. So hey, what do you do?
That's real good right there. It means you're doing something right. And Kansas State was certainly doing something right this past Saturday when they traveled to Morgantown, West Virginia. As I mentioned, 45-18 to push their record to 6-1, officially become bowl eligible, drop the Mountaineers to 3-4. Monty, we went live after the game. If you're interested in a recap of that game, definitely go over to the Go Power Cat YouTube channel where you're watching this right now. Click on live, and it will be recorded and will be there for everyone to see. K-State was dominant in this game by all intents and purposes of the word. It was a little close in the first half, but that second half was a lot of fun to watch.
It was, and it was one of those games where I think as a team, as fans, as people that follow the Cats, there was never any doubt that we were the better team, and there was never really a lot of worry of what the outcome would be. I was just anxious and excited to see how West Virginia was going to try to attack us, where they try to bring the same plan in that Colorado did, stack the box, force us to throw and whatnot. But K-State as a whole, offense, defense, special teams, backups, they all look good. And like you said, initially, West Virginia gave us their best shot, but we took over the game. And overall, as a team, we did what we were supposed to do, go on the road, get a win, take care of business, and leave no doubt. And the Cats did that for sure.
And it was interesting because you mentioned it. The game plan for West Virginia was different. For Colorado, I don't know what the game plan was for Colorado. Whatever it was, it didn't work because DJ Giddens ran wild against the Buffaloes. And it was very obvious from the start that West Virginia was not going to let K-State beat them with the run. They were going to make Avery Johnson beat them with his arm. And he did just that, completing passes to basically every single person who suited up that played on offense. It felt like Avery Johnson was electric through the air. And let it be known, DJ Giddens, who had only scored two rushing touchdowns coming into the season, had 2 rushing touchdowns on a game we consider to be an off night. And so I think DJ, obviously, and the rest of the offense will gladly take that. Monty, just looking through the box score here, Avery Johnson was 19 of 29 for 298 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. To me, was almost the stat of the game.
No, it was. And I think the part that stood out to me, I hate to say effortless, but it seemed almost effortless. We talked about it before on the post game, and he had a clean pocket. The O-line did a really good job of allowing him to see what he had, and there was no panic in his eyes. He kind of read from left to right to left, whatever you want to look at. And the receivers and the tight ends, they're included as receivers also, did a really good job of sitting in the gaps, sitting in the holes, and he found them, and then they got yards after the catch. So as a whole, the team did a really good job, but Avery looked so comfortable in the pocket. It was very welcome to see because a lot of people still question his ability to pass. And the fact that they forced us to pass was really good to see that we could all say, you know what, you shut down our run game or you slow down our run game. I wouldn't say shut down, but slow down our run game. We can still pass on you. And Avery did a phenomenal job of showing the rest of the conference and the world that he can pass the ball if needed.
And if people still question if Avery Johnson can pass, they must not be watching football because these past 2 weekends, I mean, literally, K-State's won because Avery Johnson can throw the ball. I mean, if Avery Johnson is just a glorified running back, like some people, I don't even think say that anymore, but maybe said, at the start of the season, then K-State doesn't beat Colorado, and they probably don't beat West Virginia. But credit the Kansas State offensive staff for trusting their guy. They said on Monday, Chris Klein said, no, I mean, the quarterback run game was on the table. I don't know if I believe him when he says that, but he said it was on the table, and they just didn't need to do it. And you know what? If you don't have to run him, Don't run them. Now, that's not always going to be the case. Monty, it could be the case on Saturday. I don't know if KU can stop the Kansas State passing attack, but eventually there will be a time where Avery will have to run. And we've seen it before. In games where he's had to run, he's been able to run. But I think this is the craziest part, Monty. DJ Giddens, 19 carries, 57 yards with 2 touchdowns, but Dylan Edwards had 3 receptions. DJ Giddens had a reception. Dante Cephas had a reception. Will Ancio, 2 receptions for 19 yards and a touchdown. The Wichita kid. Garrett Oakley, 2 catches, 20 yards, a touchdown. Jace Brown, only 2 catches for 22 yards, which meant other guys had to step up. You had Keegan Johnson, 3 catches, 46. Jaden Jackson, leading receiver, 2 catches, 84 yards, and 1 touchdown on back-to-back plays. And Monty, how about it? Ty Bowman, the former walk-on from Chanute, 3 catches for 27 yards. Again, his ability to distribute the ball on Saturday night was amazing.
You're right. And real quick, talking about Ty Bowman, he is what K-State football has been about. He epitomizes a kid that walks on, doesn't quit, doesn't complain, continue to battle, to be special on special teams. And the fact that the coaches recognize this kid can play more than special team, let's get him in the game in the offensive role. And for the fact that they actually throw to him, not use him as a decoy or just to please him to get him on the offense side of the ball is huge. But my biggest takeaway from that is K-State has weapons. And I love the fact that they use all 3 tight ends this past weekend. And that forces defenses moving forward to prepare for those guys. Because a lot of times teams have tight ends that are blocking tight ends and teams have tight ends that are pass catching tight ends. K-State has 3 tight ends that can block and pass catch. So that puts us in a position where you can't really game plan against that. And you have to honor that and stay true to your defensive roles and not guess. You know, a guy comes in and says he's a blocking guy, they're probably going to run. But for K-State, we don't know if they're going to run or they're going to pass. So K-State put that out there, and then planning for that makes it a lot more difficult to prepare. And also, when you have a quarterback who can run the ball, who has not have to run the ball, but he can, that puts your defense in a bad situation. So I'm kind of curious to see how that works moving forward in the games coming up.
And Braden Lofton, another one of those guys who had a pretty big impact at the start of the season, potentially coming back for this game. We don't know that for sure. Definitely on the table. He'll be back sooner rather than later. So really, Monty, you're looking at 4 tight ends. And oh yeah, by the way, looking ahead down to next year, there's a guy by the name of Lincoln Cure who I've heard is a pretty good tight end.
Right.
I've heard he's pretty good. I don't know. He might also be joining that very stacked tight end room with a bunch of young kids. So yeah, I mean, the way they use this tight end, it's pretty awesome. Speaking of the tight ends, I want to talk about the offensive line because, man, I mean, on Saturday, they were down Cover Willis. It sounds like he's going to be able to play. I would have to think that Hadley Panzer is going to find a way to play, the team captain kid from Lake in Kansas. I would have to think he's going to find a way to play in this game against Kansas. I mean, steady Eddie with the offensive line. I mean, people have kind of overlooked the fact that K-State lost all those guys last year, and they really aren't even missing a beat.
Yeah, and you hit it on the head with that. If they were struggling, the talk about K-State would be, we graduated so many guys. We got Cooper Beebe, who's now starting for the Cowboys. We lost so many starters, and, oh, man, K-State's offense is going to struggle. But the fact that the O-line has not been the topic of, subject of people's topic speaks volumes. They're doing their job. They're doing what they're supposed to, and they're protecting our quarterback, and they're allowing our running backs to have lanes. So the fact that people aren't talking about our O-line lets us know that they're doing their job. And it makes me happy. We talked about it at the beginning of the season. There was question marks. Yeah, we had some experience, but we had a lot of guys who hadn't played together as a group for a lot of games. And how would they gel? And they have shut up any doubters whatsoever right now, and I think they will continue to get better because we're not even close to where they're going to be, and they're continuing to get better. And as they play more games, it's going to be fun to watch.
And so we had a question that on one of our podcasts earlier this week on the Questions podcast, Monty. I want to get your take on this because somebody brought up a question of, it seems like whenever K-State struggles on defense, the struggles start in the secondary. And one of our subscribers found that odd because Chris Kleiman, former defensive back, Joe Kleinerman, defensive backs coach, and Van Malone, cornerbacks coach, are like basically your 3 highest and most tenured coaches. I kind of chuck that up to maybe they're just not as talented as they have been in the past, and fans can get caught up in comparing teams, which really isn't fair because every season is its own little thing. And I feel like, honestly, the secondary struggles we've seen, I feel more confident that they're going to be able to turn them around because of that very fact that there are 3 high-level coaches in the secondary.
Yeah, right now, K-State secondary does have its struggles. I agree with that 100%. But you got to understand, though, too, we lost a lot of guys that have played a lot of ball games together. With any sport, you find guys in the back end, secondary, who communicate, and they understand their teammate. They understand what they're going to do without even verbalizing it. You can give a guy a look and understand, okay, he's going to go high, or I know him. When there's a run, he coming down hard in the box. I might want to stay a little bit looser because if we're going to play action, I can be over the top. K-State has been rotating a lot of guys on purpose and because of injury. But once they find that core 4 that communicate, they're going to be okay. And I feel like every game, K-State is rotating certain guys. And the coaches you mentioned, they're paid a lot of money for a reason. They're good at what they do. They will find a core group that will be able to communicate and stop teams going forward. And you got to understand, the Big 12 has a lot of talented players, man. And each week you have to roll certain people in to stop what they're good at. When you play at Iowa State, we want to have guys that in there can stop the run. When you play at Colorado, you want to have guys in there that can stop the pass. It varies. We got KU coming up this week. They are capable to run the ball. They have a dynamic running game. They have a dynamic quarterback. So we got to put guys in there to figure out what happened. But people understand, once we get that going, it'll be okay. You get a guy like a Jack Fabris, who is a tweener guy. He's a backer, a safety, and he does a little bit of everything. He fills in anywhere, but you got to build around him as well. But like you said, they struggle early, but I feel like, and I truly believe, if not this coming Saturday, the following week, they will pull it together and they will make a lot of plays. And I'm curious to see how they respond, but I am confident in that group and the coaching staff.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you mentioned it. They are playing a lot of guys. And so while they might return a lot of starters, those starters are not always in the game together at the same time. And so I think sometimes fans can look and say, oh, well, they return all this experience. How come they're not as good? It's like, well, you also want to keep those guys fresh. And, for Colorado, for example, I mean, Shedeur Sanders threw the ball 40-something times. Like, you cannot play that many snaps in pass coverage and still be effective. The offense knows exactly where the ball is going. Defense has to honor whatever the guy in front of them does if you're playing man coverage. And so, I think that those guys getting valuable experience is only going to help. That's only going to help them when they get down the road. And sneaky here, Keenan Garber from Lawrence Free State, by the way, the Lawrence kid, and Jacob Parrish from Olathe North have probably been 2 of the best cornerbacks in the Big 12 this season. And so I agree that there's some communication going on, but they also have 2 studs at the corner spot.
No, it's one of those things where, going back to the earlier games, there's some busted coverages. It wasn't about ability. It was about communication and understanding what's going on. But when they are on the same page, they make plays. They had a lot of, I'd say, hype going into the season, but coaches saw what they were capable of. They saw the gains they made in the weight room. They saw the leadership that they kind of took that role when other guys left. They took over. And you're correct. They played well as a duo. And a lot of times that allows our safeties to come down into the box to play to play the run, because they are able to play man-to-man. And you see a lot of receivers and a lot of offensive teams run rub routes, run slants, because they want to try to get those guys off the ball. Because if you run a go route, Garber and Parrish both, they can run with anybody in the Big 12. Both of those guys are burners. So you're correct. They are probably 2 of the best in the Big 12. They didn't come in as highly talented as some of the other ones, but they've proven to be as good as, if not better than, a lot of guys that we talked about before the season started.
So before we get into previewing this matchup with Kansas, I want to ask you this as we get ready to head to break here. You played in this matchup multiple times. You've been inside of that locker room for K-State. Why is this game so important for Kansas State?
Honestly, I'm a Texas boy, and you see, and I knew it was important my freshman year, but I really didn't understand how important it was until the week of the game. And I saw my brothers on my team that were Kansas guys, and I saw how much it meant to them, and I didn't understand how deep it ran. But then the week of practice, you just felt the difference. In the community, you felt the difference. And at that point, you say, you know what? This matters. It matters more than people realize. And so it's one of those things where, like I said, I hate to use the word hate, but there's legitimate hate for KU during this week. And as a player, we made a bond. You don't lose to KU. That's you find a way. You don't lose to them. I don't care how down you are. You don't lose to them. And so that's how much. And believe me, the players recognize how much it means to the fans, and they recognize how much it means to alumni. So they're going to be ready. But it's one of those things where you have to be there to truly grasp the emotions that are involved. And we take a pride in it. And it's one of those things that we go in and say we players go in expecting to win. And that is no excuses to be made. Either you come ready or you don't go out there. So that's kind of how we feel about it.
I think you just fired up an entire fan base. They're all ready to run through a brick wall. No better segue to go to break than motivational speeches by Monty Spiller. You've been listening to the Friday Walkthrough. We'll be back right after a short message from our sponsors.
It's time to take a break for our sponsors. We'll be back with more from GoPowerCat.com.
Nestled in the heart of beautiful and historic Council Grove, Kansas, Riverbank Brewing is the perfect place to stop before or after the game. Riverbank Brewing, located in downtown Council Grove.
Now let's head back to the show for more K-State sports coverage from GoPowerCat.com.
Welcome back in here to the Friday Walkthrough. Cole Carmody with Monty Spiller. Thanks so much to Riverbank Brewing for sponsoring this episode and every episode of the Friday Walkthrough. With the 7 o'clock kick, you're coming to town. Make sure you stop by Council Grove on your way in. Have a nice cold refreshment. Watch a little football. Head on over to the Bill to catch the Cats and the Jayhawks. 7 o'clock on ESPN2. Monty, Kansas State enters this game as a 10-point favorite, the number 16 team in the country, 6-1 overall. 3-1 in conference. Kansas comes in at 2-5 with a 1-3 record. And as normal as that's been the last 10 years, if you were to tell me that that would have been their record at the start of the season, Monty, I wouldn't have guessed that, because this Kansas team really does have a lot of talent.
No, I'm with you 100%. No, as much as I just like Kansas, I got respect. They got some dudes that can play. They got dudes that are going to play on the next level. And they have the capability to beat anybody on any given day. The luck haven't been on their side this year, but as a K-State guy, as a fan, don't you want any moment think that they're going to lay down? They have dudes that can compete with us. They got some good players. But like you said, they've had some unfortunate happenings. They started off with a win, and they're a team that normally going into the third quarter are ahead in a lot of games.
Yep.
They are. They just can't find a way to win. And I don't want Saturday to be the time they figure it out either. But they're going to be a more than worthy opponent.
So let me ask you this, Monty, before we actually get into this, because I'm curious from a player's perspective. It feels like with Kansas, you mentioned they have a lead in the fourth quarter, and every single one of their losses, besides one, they've had a lead in the fourth quarter. When it starts to go bad, I mean, is it just kind of one of those here we go again moments? And I guess I almost feel like if it happens one time, all right, it happens a second time, okay, well, that's just bad luck. If it happens a third time, there's a trend. And if it happens a fourth time, you're like, something's going on here. I mean, I feel like that can kind of curse a team.
Yeah. I watched a few of their games, several actually. And it seems like to me, every time they lose a game or ahead or get behind, it's offense, it's defense, it's special teams, it's different parts of the game. And they don't have a lot of depth either. And when I say depth, quality depth. You know, we have guys that can go out and have a guy come in that'll be just as good and won't drop off. They don't have that like they had in the past. And it's one of those things where I'm not saying they're a disciplined team, because I'm pretty sure Coach Leipold have those guys really prepared for every game because he's a phenomenal coach. But they are undisciplined when it comes to executing when the game is on the line. And every time somebody in some area makes a mistake to affect them, like I said, it could be the quarterback throwing an interception. It could be a running back fumbling the ball. It can be a pass interference. It can be a holding call. It can be a couple of games back, TCU returned a kickoff, returned a punt back to flip a game, and that went down here from there. So different entities, different stages of the game, they just don't figure it out, and it's been affected them for how many games up until last week.
Yeah, and last week they did come out on top after a bye week, 42-14 over Houston. They looked really good in that game. They got a chance to play in their home stadium, in air quotes, in Arrowhead. Obviously, renovations are going underway to Memorial Stadium right now, so they're not playing in Lawrence, but they were not on the road for that game. And so they took care of business against Houston. And I'm kind of in a spot with this KU team. I feel like right now there is two ways you can look at this game. The first way you can look at this game is that KU has nothing to lose and everybody's expecting them to lose, so they're going to go in and play loose. But on the opposite end of that, Monty, they've lost 15 in a row to K-State. Like, you can't tell me that, oh, we have nothing to lose. Like, no, those guys badly want to beat K-State because no one on that roster, no one inside of that building has ever beaten K-State before. It doesn't matter how long they've been there, unless they were there with Mark Mangino. The only way is that maybe the custodians have beaten K-State before, but nobody else inside of that building has. And so I just don't buy the fact that, oh, there's no pressure. There's a ton of pressure because Lance Leipold stayed at KU to directly compete with K-State and be in the upper half of the Big 12. If they can't win these games, then that's a problem for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. You know, if I'm a senior at KU, I'm telling my guys, listen, we haven't played great, but please give me everything you got this game. I don't want to leave here not ever beating K-State. You know, I was fortunate. I was fortunate to be part of great teams. I redshirted, so I was there 5 years, never lost to them. And that's something I will proudly say anytime, never lost to them. But it's one of those things where, as a player, you want to beat your rival at least once. And I guarantee KU is going to come in with every trick in the book. They're going to play good, solid football, but they're going to play loose because nobody's expecting them to win. And that's a scary team when you do have talent. Yeah. So I see those guys are going to play with the thought of, I hate to even say upsetting K-State, but going into our house and beating them, because I got friends that are KU people. I've seen the media. They say, you guys got lucky. You guys slipped up and beat us last year with a backup quarterback. I'm like, you know what? You find a way to win. We did. Y'all didn't. Deal with it. Now, and I guarantee they're thinking about that. So I'm not saying they're playing for nothing, because they got a lot of pride about themselves, and those guys are still pretty, not gonna say arrogant, they're confident.
Yeah.
For a team that's 2 and whatever they are. They're still confident. And I guarantee they're gonna walk into the Bill with some swagger. And our guys need to shut that down real quick.
I sometimes swagger can be a mask for fear. And I do kind of wonder about that a little bit with KU. We'll find out once kickoff happens. I'm really positive on K-State. Looking at KU, obviously, headlined by Devin Neal, 117 carries, 692 yards, 7 touchdowns. I mean, the guy is one of the best running backs in the Big 12. He's going to be an NFL running back from Lawrence High School. Great kid. I mean, great running back. I've loved watching Devin Neal every single time he plays for KU, except for when they play K-State, because you just know that it's going to cause anxiety amongst all of the state of Kansas, not just K-State fans, because anytime he touches the ball, he can go to the house. I mean, great player. Jalen Daniels came back this year, Monty, and he just hasn't been the same guy. 103 passing completions for 182 attempts, 1,312 yards with 10 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. Jalen Daniels, I think Brian Hanley said it last week about Garrett Green. Garrett Green's going to throw you the ball. You just got to catch it. I mean, I kind of feel like that with Jalen Daniels. He's going to give K-State a chance to get a few turnovers on defense.
Yeah, he's one of those guys where his competitive nature gets him in trouble. He's kind of like Shedeur Sanders, where he won't give up on the play. He'll try to keep the play alive, where he'll take a sack or he'll throw the ball away, and it'll end up being an interception. Jalen Daniels is one of those guys where he wants to compete, and I love the young man's fire. He has a definitely warrior mentality about him, but also you got to sometimes play. I mean, you got to give up play to extend the drive, and he won't do that, and he will get the ball up. You're correct about that. And I think K-State is going to put pressure on him early and often, and he's going to press so much to make a play. It's going to benefit us with a turnover at some point. And I'm hoping it's early and not late to that point. And also going back to Devin Neal, a Kansas kid. You know, a lot of those people, a lot of people in the nation don't know who he is. Kind of like DJ Gittin, Kansas kid, but one of the best in the nation. And like I'm like you, I'm rooting for the kid, not against K-State, but I'm rooting for the kid because he is one of the best backs in the nation. And at any point he can break it, and he does it so effortless. I know K-State is aware of it. I know we'll be ready. But regardless, he does give me a little bit of nerves worrying about tackling him. But yeah, Jalen Daniels, Devin Neal, quality individuals, but they haven't had the season they expected. And I think K-State defense will take advantage of KU's O-line. They're not great.
Yeah,
they're not great. They're not great in pass rush, and they're not great in run blocking either. They created a few gaps here and there, but like I said, they shoot themselves in the foot with penalties. So I'm kind of curious to see how that'll work.
I think for K-State, and KU for that matter too, the game plans are going to be pretty similar. Take away the run and make the quarterback beat you. And I don't know if that's a good strategy for KU, but Monty, I think it can work for K-State. For as far as receivers go, you have Luke Grimm, Quentin Skinner, and Lawrence Arnold. Luke Grimm from Ray Peck High School in Kansas City is their number one guy, but he has just over 300 receiving yards on the season. So not exactly a super big play threat, but he is one of the red zone guys. I really like this matchup for K-State on defense because I think it plays right into their hands.
No, you're right, man. It's one of those things where, and I noticed with KU, some of their big plays happen when the pocket is moving, and especially with Grimm. You mentioned Grimm. Yep. He made his catches when Jalen Daniels is out of the pocket, either scripted or off the cuff. Grimm does a good job of getting open when Daniels scrambles. So K-State has to do a really good job of locking him up. Don't lose, have good eyes, don't get in the backfield, and scramble rule takes place. You lock in and you get your guy. But they don't scare me. And I think K-State will be able to put pressure on him, not just with blitzing, with a 3-man front, 4-man front, or whatever it may be. And you're correct, Cole. It's in our advantage. Our defense has the advantage against our offense if we can put them in pass situation. Now, we got to start the run first, which we have done a good job of doing that. But Devin Neal is a different beast. So we got to be ready for that. But overall, I think our defense has the advantage going into Saturday.
And as far as offensively for K-State goes, we talked about it. I think the quarterback run game will come into effect, but this Kansas defense has been shaky at best. They were good against Houston on Saturday. That was partly because Kobe Bryant had 3 interceptions. The 2 cornerbacks for Kansas, Kobe Bryant and Mello Dotson, have been there for a while. They're 2 of the better cornerbacks in the Big 12. They've been there. They have big game experience, but they are feast or famine. And if they are not getting an interception, then they're susceptible to the big play. And so I think K-State's going to be able to have some explosive plays. Are they going to be able to have success running the football? I think yes, because I don't think Kansas's run defense is going to be able to tackle both DJ and Dylan Edwards. And so I don't know. I just really like this matchup, both sides of the ball for K-State, especially though with Avery Johnson, because again, if you say you're going to take away DJ Giddens, that's fine. And you want to rely on your best players in Bryant and Dotson to shut down K-State's receivers. Monty, I just feel like that's where the quarterback run game comes into play.
No, you're right. I think quarterback run game will play a role, but my mind thinking, I'm looking at this physicality. They got 2 good corners, but both of those corners are not very big physical guys, especially Kobe Bryant. He's a great cover guy, has great hips, great speed, great ball technique, but I'm looking at K-State to run some switch routes. And what I mean by that is you take your receiver and you have 2 tight ends and you run switch routes and you make Kobe Bryant cover a bigger physical tight end. I like that matchup every time and make him tackle that big body over and over. And then you bring DJ Giddens on the edge and run right at him. See how much tackle he want to be. Yeah. That's about the game. And at the point, he gets to the point where, like, I'm tired of tackling these big boys, and then you take him deep. I think K-State's going to bring that physicality to him and see what happens. That's my thinking. I could be wrong, but just saying, if you're listening, Coach, hear me out.
Well, you might be onto something, because just looking at the statistics, first of all, KU only has 1 linebacker who has any kind of tackle numbers that's worth a dang. J.B. Brown has 39 tackles. He leads the team. O.J. Burrows, the safety, has 35 tackles and is in second on the team. And third on the team is Mello Dotson, the cornerback. The cornerback is third on the team in tackles. That to me is wild. And I think it kind of proves that point of, like, teams have the idea. All right, they can cover, but can they tackle? And so I don't know. I do think that anytime you have a cornerback and a safety who are number 2 and 3 on your team in tackles, that's probably not a good sign. The next linebacker has 28 tackles. And so he's, even quite a few behind those guys. I just feel like if K-State can get to the second level, that just screams a team that cannot stop the run.
Yeah, and I think K-State will come out and impose their will with the run game initially. They tried to against West Virginia, and credit to West Virginia. They did a good job of slowing us down, and they forced Avery to pass, and Avery torched them with the pass, and then the run game opened up late. But I think K-State will, just because it's KU, and West Virginia D-line did a really good job, and their coaches did a good job of stopping the run. But I think our O-line is asking our coach, hey, let's run the ball. Let's impose our will. You know football. Anybody who knows football, the main way to defeat a team is to run the ball down their throat. They can know what's coming, and they can't stop it. Mm-hmm. That can break any defense. And I'm hoping K-State has the same idea in mind. And then once they stack the box, like you said, the quarterback run game, force them to honor that and have Avery have a big day. but keep them safe. Keep them safe. But I'm anxious to see how that works out.
Well, Manhattan is sure to be rocking. The Go Power Cat staff will be there. I'll be there. Monty will be there. So if you see Monty, give him a high five. Tell him his head looks good because he's got the shiny head going, and he's probably wearing his Legends shirt. It's going to be a great night on Saturday. It's going to be on ESPN2, national audience for the Sunflower Showdown, K-State and KU. Monty, before we wrap this up, we got to get our picks. I'll go ahead and go first because I have a feeling I know what you're going to say. I think that this game is actually going to be close for a while. Now, is a while going to be a quarter and a half, 2 quarters, 3 quarters? I don't know. But even if it's close the whole entire time, I don't trust that Kansas is going to find a way to win. Could they cover the spread? They absolutely could cover the 10 points. But I don't trust KU to win this game simply because they haven't won close games. I mean, they just haven't. And so I'm going to take K-State to win. I think they start to pull away. We'll say a turnover by Jalen Daniels in the second half really sets this game in motion. I'm going to take K-State to win 42-20.
I like it, man. Golly, we're on point. I'm going to give my score first and then kind of backtrack. I was thinking 45-21. And so I'm with you. Mm-hmm. And I think 2 things. I think K-State, another, not unknown, but a guy that hadn't had a big game will emerge. I'm not sure who it is, but somebody's going to have a game that nobody's expecting. DJ going to do what he do. Avery's going to do what he do. Dylan will have a decent game as well. But I feel like another guy, could be a tight end, it could be a receiver, is going to have a breakout game and just dominate in some aspect. And on the flip side, too, and I never wish harm on anybody, even KU, but I feel like K-State's physicality is going to come into play again, and somebody from KU that's going to be vital for their team's success is going to feel that wrath and end up not finishing the game, and they're going to bring somebody else in to fill their role, and K-State's going to exploit that. But I think our physicality will be the common denominator across the board, offensive-wise, defensive-wise, and special teams. And yes, there will be a special team play come Saturday night at the Bill.
Potentially by Ty Bowman? Question mark.
I say 2 guys, Ty or Dylan.
All right, there you go. 2 Kansas kids. Either way, the Kansas kids will be front and center stage for the Sunflower Showdown, Kansas State versus Kansas. Both Monty and I have a pretty lopsided score, but I think we're all on the same page and that this game is going to be a lot of fun and one that you cannot miss. Kansas State and Kansas, 7 o'clock, ESPN2 at the Bill. Enjoy the game wherever you may be. If you're in Manhappiness in Manhattan, Kansas, enjoy your time. Be safe, be smart, enjoy the game. Make sure you're wearing your purple, and we will talk to you next Friday.
Thank you for watching the Friday Walkthrough, sponsored by Riverbank Brewing. This has been a GoPowerCat.com and Spirit Street production.